The moment Aaron Jacobs turned onto Sycamore Ridge Lane, he felt out of place, not because of his dusty pickup or the old duffel bag in his passenger seat, but because of the silence. Too perfect, too staged. Every house in the Maple Falls community stood identical. Symmetrical hedges, pastel shutters, driveways pressure washed to a blinding shine, except one. At the end of the road, slightly veiled by leaning oaks, stood his inheritance. A weathered log cabin with a slanted roof, an overgrown garden, and a crooked mailbox with Jacobs, carved in bold hand-cut letters. Aaron parked, stepping out into the thick air of early summer. He could smell pine sap, damp earth, and the faintest hint of wood smoke. Comforting, familiar. This was his grandfather's place, and now it was his. The door creaked open exactly as he remembered from childhood visits. Inside, time stood, still. Vintage oil lamps hung from beams. The stone fireplace was still stacked with kindling. A wool blanket, fraying at the edges, lay over the couch like someone had just stepped out. He smiled. Until someone knocked. 3 quick raps, he opened, the door to find a tall woman with aggressively perfect posture, wearing a beige pantsuit that looked starched into submission. She didn't smile. "Marlene Withers," she said, handing him a packet without eye contact. "President of the Maple Falls Homeowners Association." Aaron glanced at the thick stack of documents. "Can I help you?" "You can begin by reading our compliance guidelines. Your structure violates 17 of them." "Structure." She pointed at the cabin like it was diseased. "That thing. It's not aligned with the community's aesthetic values. It needs to be repainted. The chimney is unapproved brick, and the mailbox is non-standard. It must be removed or replaced immediately." Aaron blinked. "This cabin's older than this whole neighborhood. My grandfather built it with his own hands. He chose not to follow the rules." Marlene cut in. "And we let him be. Out of respect for the elderly. But he's gone now, and your property is officially under HOA jurisdiction." She turned on her heel, shoes clicking sharply on the pavement. "Welcome to the community, Mr. Jacobs." As she left, Aaron watched the neighbors across the street pull back their curtains. Just enough for him to see their narrowed eyes. Not one had welcomed him. He stepped back inside and flipped through the packet. Fines, threats, mandatory repaint colors, misty cedar, fogstone beige, and approved HOA gray. By sunset, Aaron had already found 3 of his grandfather's old blueprints for the cabin. He traced a finger over the hand-drawn porch, the original fireplace design, even notes scribbled in the margins. Aaron's corner, reading nook, he was still staring at the papers when he noticed something out the window. Marlene, watching, standing dead still on the curb, arms crossed, face blank. Aaron met her stare. She didn't flinch. Then she turned and walked into the misty dark. That night, Aaron didn't sleep. Something told him Marlene Withers wasn't just another overzealous HOA president. There was something else in her eyes. Not just disdain, but urgency, as if she needed that cabin gone, not just for appearances, but because of what it might reveal. He flipped open one of his grandfather's old journals and began to read. The first line sent chills down his spine. "If you're reading this, it means she's trying again." Aaron awoke to a strange silence. Not the peaceful kind, but a hollow stillness, like the world was holding its breath. Fog pressed against the cabin windows, thick and unmoving, as if someone had poured cement into the air. He rubbed his eyes and walked to the front door, only to find a letter wedged into the frame. Not mailed, no envelope, just folded paper, soaked at the edges and scrawled in ink that bled into the fibers. Remove the structure before we do. No. Signature. No return address. Just that sentence. Aaron stared at the note, then scanned the street. No cars. No people. Just the curtain in Marlene's front window, fluttering as if someone had just stepped away from it. He crushed the paper in his fist. He'd dealt with bullies before. In the military, in business, even during his mother's long illness, when debt collectors came with fake documents and smug smiles. Marlene was just another kind of parasite. Still, something about this didn't feel like a typical HOA dispute. The fog clung too thick. The silence felt watched. Later that morning, Aaron walked the perimeter of the property to clear his head and found his gate. An old wrought iron arch. His grandfather had welded himself, ripped from its hinges, and lying twisted in the grass. The screws weren't rusted out. They'd been yanked, deliberately. He called the police. A bored-sounding dispatcher said they'd send someone by, when possible. No one ever came. He checked the cameras he'd installed on the cabin's exterior the night before. 2 battery-powered trail cams, and a motion-activated dash cam, aimed at the front path. All were dead, not out of batteries. Wiped. No files. Cleaned like they'd never recorded anything. Suspicion turned to unease. Aaron wasn't paranoid by nature, but every logical explanation kept slipping out of reach. He paced the living room until his eyes landed on the bookshelf, and a thick journal tucked sideways behind a row of mystery novels. He pulled it out. More of his grandfather's tight, angular handwriting filled the pages. One entry stood out, dated July 7th, 1981. They've tried before. She smiled, sweet as poison, and called it community compliance, but it was always about the land. There's something here she wants gone. The old map wasn't lost. It was hidden. I placed it where no one would think to look. If she returns, the cabin's no longer just a home. It's a battlefield. Aaron turned the page. A small drawing of the cabin layout filled the next sheet, with an X marked under the floorboards near the fireplace. Curious and on edge, he grabbed a flashlight and pried open the warped planks one by one. Beneath them, a metal latch. He opened it slowly, revealing a small crawl space lined with cobwebs. Inside was a fireproof lockbox. It wasn't locked. Inside were folded documents, building permits, old photographs of his grandfather, and a group of veterans, and a certificate bearing a gold seal. Proposed state historic site. Jacob's cabin. Status, pending. But someone had written in thick black ink, approved, 1975. The certificate was signed and stamped by the state. Historical Society. Aaron stared at it, heart pounding. This cabin isn't just old. It's protected. Officially. He barely had time to process the implications when a shadow passed across the frosted window pane. He looked up and saw Marlene standing just outside, facing the cabin. Her expression was blank, but her eyes were fixed on the open floor. She knew. Without knocking, she turned and walked away. Aaron waited until Marlene vanished down the sidewalk before sealing the floorboards shut. The box, the documents, the certificate. He reburied it all. He wasn't ready to show his cards. Not yet. Not until he understood why Marlene cared so much. The fog lingered well into the afternoon, swallowing sound and light alike. Aaron stayed inside, flipping through the journal and matching entries to what he'd just discovered. His grandfather had suspected someone in the HOA of intentionally delaying the landmark designation. The entry from 1982 was direct. MW blocked the final submission, said it would complicate the future. The board agreed. The only copy was filed in that box. If she ever comes back, it means she failed the first time. She won't fail again. M.W. Marlene Withers. She wasn't just some HOA tyrant enforcing fence paint rules. She had history with this land, and if his grandfather's notes were accurate, she'd already tried once before to wipe this place off the map. Aaron began photographing every document and scanning every page of the journal. Then he emailed it all to himself and saved backups in multiple folders labeled under boring names like Tax Receipts 2018, Digital Camouflage. That night, the silence returned, but now it pressed closer. Like a hand over his mouth. No owls, no breeze, only the whisper of paranoia crawling down his spine. He was brushing his teeth when he heard it. Scraping. A slow, deliberate sound. Not wind, not animals. Scraping. Beneath the cabin. He grabbed his flashlight and stepped out onto the porch. The fog had thinned, but the trees still stood like dark sentinels around him. He aimed the beam under the cabin and froze. Someone had pulled the floor vent cover loose. It lay tossed to the side in the dirt. Boot prints surrounded it. Deep, fresh. Aaron ducked down, heart pounding. He scanned the crawl space, but whoever had been there was gone. Yet something else caught his eye. The lockbox. It had been moved, slightly rotated. Someone had tried to open it, probably expecting treasure, or maps, or secrets. All they got was documentation, but that made Aaron wonder. Was that what they were hoping to find? Or destroy? He sealed the vent, reinforced it with new bolts, then hid the lockbox somewhere far less obvious, inside a hollowed-out section of the stone chimney. A trick his grandfather had once shown him as a child. It wasn't easy prying open the back panel without disturbing the mortar, but the box slid in like it belonged there. The next morning, he woke up to hammering metal on wood. He rushed outside and stopped cold. The handmade porch swing, his grandfather's pride, was gone. In its place, 2 broken chains dangling from the support beam, deep gouges in the wood where someone had wrenched it loose. No note, no warning. Aaron walked to Marlene's house. The lawn sprinklers were running in perfect arcs, and a fresh row of tulips lined her walkway. He rang the doorbell. Once, twice. She answered in a silk robe, sipping tea like she hadn't just declared war. Good morning, Mr. Jacobs. My porch swing was stolen. She blinked slowly. Oh, how unfortunate. Maybe raccoons. Raccoons used a crowbar. She smiled, thin and cold. Do you have proof? Aaron said nothing, just stared. You really should consider cooperating. This could all go much smoother. For everyone. He stepped back. You're afraid of what's in that cabin, aren't you? Her eyes narrowed, just slightly, a flicker of fear, then turned back to steel. You're not ready to know what I'm afraid of, she said softly. But if you're smart, you'll leave. Before you find out. She shut the door. The deadbolt clicked. Aaron stood there, fists clenched, the morning sun finally burning through the fog. And yet somehow the chill remained. Aaron spent the rest of the day installing more cameras. Inside and out, he ran a hidden mic near the fireplace and used motion-activated trail cams tucked into the birdhouses and trees. If Marlene or anyone else came poking around again, he'd know, but the real surveillance came later. Just before midnight, Aaron watched from the cabin's loft, with the lights off and binoculars in hand. The Maple Falls neighborhood slept like a sedated patient. Every window dark except one, Marlene's. From behind her curtain, a soft blue glow pulsed. A laptop screen, maybe, or something else. At 12:37 a.m., 2 black trucks rolled in with no headlights. They coasted silently down the street and parked just across from his property. Engines off, windows tinted, 3 men stepped out, all in dark jackets, no logos, no words exchanged. Aaron grabbed his camera and crept into the tree line. He kept low, weaving through the underbrush until he found a spot with a clear view. The men didn't approach his cabin. They went to the community pool. Marlene was already there, waiting in the shadows, arms folded. She handed them a thick manila envelope, which one of the men flipped through under a red flashlight. Another one pulled out what looked like a blueprint. Aaron snapped a dozen photos from behind a hedge. Then he took video. The men nodded to Marlene, who pointed directly at the cabin. His cabin. One of them spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "We do this Monday. Clean, fast, no one asks questions." Marlene replied, "The board will vote on it tomorrow. It'll be approved by morning. Just make sure no trace of that foundation remains." Aaron's pulse hammered in his ears. No permits, no warnings, just a backroom deal and a plan to raise his family's legacy. Like it was a weed in a garden, he crept backward, camera still rolling, until he was far enough to run. Inside the cabin, he uploaded the footage to the cloud and made 3 backups. This wasn't about HOA aesthetics anymore. This was a cover-up. The next morning, he received an email from the HOA board. Emergency session scheduled. Agenda. Unapproved structure at Lot 47, Jacob's property. Board vote required for demolition authorization. Aaron called the number, listed on the bottom. A robotic voice confirmed the vote was scheduled for 3 p.m. and that homeowners need not attend unless formally invited. He showed up anyway. The meeting took place in the clubhouse's polished community center. All marble floors and oversized flower arrangements. Aaron stood in the back, while 5 board members sat at a long table up front. Marlene presided. In the middle, smiling like a queen addressing peasants. "We move to vote on the removal of the unregulated structure at Lot 47, she announced. Any discussion? A few murmured words. Someone mentioned compliance. Another nodded. The motion passed in seconds. Aaron raised his hand. "This cabin is a registered landmark. I have proof." Marlene cut him off. "This is a closed session, Mr. Jacobs. I have video of you meeting with contractors. I have audio of you plotting to destroy a state-protected site." Gasps flooded through the room. Marlene's smile faltered. "That's a serious accusation," she said coolly. "And illegal surveillance, I might add." Aaron pulled out a USB. "Let's find out." She stood, slamming her gavel. "This meeting is adjourned." The other board members looked at each other, uncertain, now nervous. Marlene stormed out, her heels clacking like gunshots. But before she reached the exit, she turned and whispered just loud enough for Aaron to hear. "You really don't understand who you're dealing with." Aaron whispered back, "Neither do you." And he meant it. Because if his grandfather's map was right, there was still one more thing hidden beneath the cabin. Monday came with a storm warning, but the skies over Maple Falls were crystal clear. Unnaturally so. Aaron stood on his porch at dawn, hands in his pockets, staring down the street where the black trucks had been. At 7:03 a.m. sharp, he heard the rumble. 2 yellow bulldozers crawled into the neighborhood like metal beasts, escorted by a white service van, labeled Mason Development Group. No HOA markings. No permits taped to the vehicles. Just blank faces behind tinted windows. Aaron stepped off the porch and met them halfway down the driveway. "Can I help you?" One of the crewmen, tall, stubbled, with mirrored sunglasses, didn't answer. He checked a clipboard. "This the Jacobs property?" Aaron crossed his arms. "Yeah. We're under contract to perform a demolition. All authorized. We can show the paperwork. He snatched the clipboard and flipped through it. No, county seal. No inspection report. No court order. This isn't legal. The foreman frowned. Look, we're just doing our job. You're about to destroy a state-protected landmark, Aaron said flatly, which makes your job a felony. That gave them pause. The crewman glanced at the van. Marlene stepped out, flanked by 2 other board members. She wore a navy blue blouse and a fake smile. Mr. Jacobs, you were given multiple notices. The board has voted. This structure is in violation. Aaron pulled his phone out and tapped the screen. Say that again. Her eyes flickered. Excuse me? You just said the board authorized demolition. I've got the entire HOA meeting recorded. You're authorizing destruction of a state-registered landmark without a court order, permit, or inspection. This is premeditated. He turned to the bulldozer crew. Walk away now, and you won't go down with her. The tension cracked like dry kindling. One driver shut off his engine. The foreman muttered, "We're out," and motioned for his crew to follow. Marlene's voice turned cold. You'll regret this. Aaron stared her down. That cabin's older than every house on this street. Older than your HOA. My grandfather fought to protect it, and I will too. Marlene's mask finally slipped. She leaned in close. Voice low. Your grandfather had no idea what that cabin sits on. Neither do you, but I do. And I won't let you stand in my way. Then she turned and walked briskly back to the van. But Aaron wasn't watching her. He was thinking about the map. That night, he had stayed up, piecing together the final pages of his grandfather's journal. The map wasn't just of the land. It included underground tunnels, carved by bootleggers during Prohibition. One led from the chimney base to a sealed root cellar, hidden beneath a thicket at the edge of the woods. He grabbed a flashlight and sprinted through the trees, heart pounding. The cabin behind him stood quiet. For now. After 20 minutes of combing the underbrush, he found it. A sunken patch of earth, half covered by moss. He scraped it away and found a heavy wooden trapdoor, with rusted iron hinges. It groaned open. Cold air rushed up from below. Steps carved into rock disappeared into darkness. He hesitated only a moment, then descended. The cellar wasn't empty. Old crates lined the walls. Moonshine bottles, military gear, faded maps. But in the center sat a weathered stone pedestal with something glinting atop it. A brass cylinder, engraved with strange symbols, and a name etched in bold letters. Jacob's Project. Do not open unless necessary. Aaron reached for it, and the earth trembled. Not from footsteps, from beneath. Aaron's hand hovered over the brass cylinder. The tremor beneath the earth had passed, but the silence it left behind felt more ominous than the quake itself. He brushed dust from the engraving. Jacob's Project. Do not open unless necessary. Beneath that, in his grandfather's unmistakable handwriting, scratched directly into the brass. She's not who she says she is. Aaron unscrewed the lid slowly, heart pounding, afraid of what he might find and what he might unleash. Inside, papers, tightly rolled blueprints, a small leather-bound notebook, and a photo. The photo struck first. His grandfather stood with 4 men in military uniforms. But what caught Aaron's breath was the woman among them. Younger, but unmistakable, Marlene. Same sharp cheekbones, same cold eyes. Dated 1972. Aaron flipped open the notebook. His grandfather's entries were frantic, messy. A stark contrast to the usual meticulous penmanship. Jacob's Project was never supposed to reach Phase 3. She pushed for it. Said it would change everything. Evolution, time, space. She lied. It wasn't science. It was something older. Something we dug up near the spring under the cabin. The thing. It spoke. We sealed it in the vault. No one must open it again. She vanished for 30 years. Now she's back. She hasn't aged. She wants it. Aaron's breath caught. This wasn't just about land or legacy. It was about whatever lay beneath the cabin, under the tunnels, beyond the vault door, etched on the last page of the map. He unrolled the blueprint and saw it. A reinforced sublevel below the cellar, a sealed chamber, marked only with one word, containment. Suddenly, a metallic clank echoed through the chamber. He whipped around. The trapdoor above had closed. Footsteps thudded overhead, slow, deliberate. Aaron killed his flashlight and crouched behind the crates. Dust swirled in the beam of a second light. Someone else descending the stairs. Marlene. No flashlight. Her eyes adjusted effortlessly to the dark. She moved like someone who had been down there before. Not just once, but many times. You found it, she said calmly, almost admiringly. You always were clever, like your grandfather. Aaron didn't move, but cleverness won't save you now. She stepped to the pedestal and rested her hand on the empty cylinder. I told him not to bury it. We could have changed the world, but he was a coward. He sealed it away. And for what? To protect people who'd never understand what they were standing on. What is it? Aaron's voice cut the silence. She turned to him, eyes now gleaming, with something inhuman, a doorway, a mind, a force that was never meant to be unearthed, but it spoke to us. It promised us everything. Immortality, insight, control. Aaron stood slowly. You made a deal. She smiled. And now I've come to collect. Before he could react, she moved. Impossibly fast. In an instant, she was inches away, and the air around her shimmered, like heat-bending reality. But Aaron wasn't unarmed. From his jacket, he pulled the old brass key he'd found earlier, hidden in the chimney with the lockbox. He jammed it into a slot behind the pedestal he'd spotted in the blueprint. The floor trembled. A low groaning sound came from deep below. Gears long dormant grinding back to life. Marlene's smile faded. You don't know what you've just done, she hissed. I'm not sure you do either, Aaron replied. The pedestal split open. A hidden staircase revealed itself, spiraling downward into a glowing abyss. Aaron took a step forward, then turned to Marlene. This ends where it began. Down there, the newly revealed staircase, pulsed with a dim orange glow, like molten veins running deep into the earth. The air grew hotter with every step, thick with the scent of ozone and old secrets. Aaron descended slowly, the key still clenched in his fist, his other hand skimming the damp stone wall for balance. Above him, Marlene didn't follow. Not yet, but her voice echoed after him, low and calm. Your grandfather never had the nerve to come this far. He locked it away, pretended it would sleep forever, but it only dreamed. And now, you've woken it. Aaron kept moving. The air felt charged, buzzing in his bones. At the base of the stairs, he stepped into a circular chamber carved from the bedrock. Unlike anything he'd ever seen, ancient symbols glowed faintly along the walls, forming patterns that seemed to shift if you looked too long. In the center stood a sarcophagus-shaped vault, metal bound in stone, lined with arcane symbols that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. On the top was a control panel, old and analog, yet still functional. A slot beside it was shaped exactly like the key Aaron carried. He hesitated. His grandfather's journal had warned about this place. The last entry had been almost a prayer. If you find this place, run. Don't open it. Don't listen. It will offer you everything. It lies. Aaron looked around. The walls whispered. No, not the walls. Something behind them. Then he heard it. A voice. Or something like a voice. Not in words, but in intent. It filled his head, his chest, his blood. You came back. We remember your name. Jacobs. The keeper's line. We waited, and you opened the door. Aaron staggered backward. What are you? A pause. And then, the beginning, the end, the hand that shapes the fire beneath all thrones. You stood above us once. Now you kneel. The ground trembled again, more violently this time. Cracks formed in the ceiling above the vault. Dust rained down like ash. And then Marlene was there. She didn't walk down the stairs. She descended, as if gliding just above each step. Her eyes glowed faintly now, and her presence twisted the air like heat off pavement. It wants a vessel, she said. It chose your bloodline long ago. Your grandfather denied it. You don't have to. You gave yourself to it. I became what I was meant to be. She gestured to the vault. Open it, or it will open itself. You only have one chance to contain it, or control it. Aaron looked down at the key in his hand. It was warm, now, almost hot. The voices clawed at his mind. Promises of power, visions of fire, skies folding in on themselves, and always his name. Spoken like a sacred chant. He dropped the key. Marlene hissed. You fool. But the chamber lit up, as if the decision itself had triggered a failsafe. The ancient symbols glowed searing white, and a hidden mechanism above the vault activated. Flooding the chamber with blinding light, the vault shuddered. Stone cracked. A final voice echoed through Aaron's mind. Unmistakably his grandfather's. There is no control. Only containment. If you're hearing this, you're the last chance. Marlene lunged, eyes blazing. Aaron slammed his palm on the emergency seal beside the vault. Boom! A flash of heat, light, and an explosion of force blasted through the chamber. The vault sealed itself shut with a deep clang. Symbols on the walls burned red. Marlene screamed, not in pain, but in rage, as she was flung backward into the shadows. And then silence. Aaron lay on the floor, dazed, ears ringing. The vault was shut. Whatever was inside, it was locked again, for now. When Aaron finally emerged from the depths of the vault, dawn had already broken over Maple Falls. The trees stood still, their leaves untouched by wind, as if the forest itself were holding its breath. He stumbled through the thicket, bruised and coated in dust. His cabin stood ahead, the porch light flickering faintly, untouched by demolition equipment, untouched by time. But something felt different. Off. The sky was brighter than it should have been. Too bright. No clouds. No birdsong. Just a silence. So deep, it felt placed. Inside the cabin, he found his laptop fried. Screen black. Battery hot to the touch. The trail cam memory cards wiped. His phone wouldn't turn on. Only one thing still worked. The old cassette recorder he'd used to digitize his grandfather's journal. He pressed play. Instead of the expected voice, there was static. Then, Aaron, if you're hearing this, the vault has been compromised. His grandfather's voice, but warped. Layered with something else beneath it. Something ancient. I tried to stop it. We all did. But it always finds a way through. What we sealed wasn't a creature or a god. It was a concept, a truth, a force that existed before time. Static again, then silence. Aaron sat on the floor, trying to piece together the last few hours. What had he actually stopped? Was it sealed again? Or had he unleashed something worse? Suddenly, footsteps approached the front door. He grabbed the fireplace poker and braced himself. The door creaked open. Deputy Collins. The same deputy who had dismissed Marlene's complaints. Only, something was wrong with him too. His uniform looked just a little too clean, his eyes too clear, and when he spoke, his voice had no breath. Behind it, Aaron Jacobs, he said evenly, I need you to come with me. Aaron stood slowly. What for? We've received reports of a gas leak near your residence. Safety protocol requires an evacuation of the property. A gas leak, Aaron repeated. Right. He stared at the deputy. Who sent you? The deputy's jaw twitched. The HOA. Aaron's blood went cold. I thought Marlene was off the board. She's not, said the deputy. She is the board. Aaron stepped back. Sir, the deputy continued. Resistance will be reported. Aaron grabbed his grandfather's notebook and the brass cylinder from the shelf. I'm not going anywhere. The deputy's eyes flashed. For the briefest moment, Aaron saw a flicker of light, like that same impossible glow from the vault. A pulse behind his irises. Then the deputy smiled. Then we'll come back, with more convincing. He turned and walked away. Aaron bolted the door and locked every window. He knew now. It wasn't over. The vault had been sealed, yes. But something got out. A trace. A spark. Maybe even just an idea. But it was enough. The cabin wasn't just a landmark. It was a prison. And now, something was trying to turn it into a beacon. He opened the trapdoor once more, descended just far enough to reset the failsafe mechanism, adding another lock, wiring the staircase shut, then layering the original brass key in molten wax and sealing it inside a brick. Back upstairs, he nailed shut the front door. Then he lit the fireplace, sat down, waited, because now he understood the truth his grandfather had tried to pass on. Some legacies are meant to be honored. Others are meant to be buried. And the HOA, they weren't just after aesthetics. They were cleaning up history, erasing the last of those who knew the truth. But Aaron would not run. He was the last Jacobs. And this time, he would make sure it stayed sealed.